In the last hour, India's Air Accident Investigation Bureau has released its preliminary report into last month's Air India plane crash, which killed more than 270 people. The report has found no significant faults with the plane.
One of the flight crew members had a known medical history, that's according to India's NDTV, and had been on extended medical leave prior to the crash.
It says both fuel control switches, which are used to turn engines on or off when on the ground, were moved shortly after takeoff, causing both engines to lose thrust. While the investigation is continuing, it is clear that attention is now focused on the actions of the pilots.
I got nightmares in my head, I fear thoughts build up until I can't breathe. My mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head, I fear.
Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science. Well, I don't know about you, but my attention was gravitating more towards the younger of the two pilots, admittedly with very little information to go on. And intertextually, we know that the Germanwings Flight 9525 crash, which occurred in the French Alps, well, that involved a 28-year-old co-pilot, Lubitz, that was responsible and that he had known but undisclosed mental health issues.
In the cockpit voice recording, the report says one of the pilots is heard asking the other why he did the cutoff. Air India Flight 171 came down less than a minute after takeoff from Ahmedabad, bound for London Gatwick.
But now, certainly based on more information, it could be the older, more experienced 56-year-old pilot that deserves further scrutiny. Before we get to that, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. By the way, I'll be doing an analysis on the Hawkeye system at Wimbledon later today, so look out for that. If you're finding this analysis worthwhile, please hit the thanks button and let's get started.
Captain Ranganathan, you said that there was a medical condition that you were aware of one of the pilots. Is that right?
Yeah, that's what I've heard. That several pilots in Air India are reporting that he has a medical condition and he was also on medical leave for some time. So if the top management was not aware of that, I'm surprised because many of the line pilots are aware of that.
So there you have it, and it could be hearsay, but it seems like it may not be. According to NDTV, citing one of India's leading aviation experts, let's see if I can get this right, Captain Mohan Ranganathan. He said, I've heard that several pilots at Air India reported that the captain had a medical condition and was on medical leave for some time. So we'd want to know what kind of medical leave, for how long, and exactly what kind of medical condition. Did it have something to do with mental health? Was it a physical condition? Was it a mental condition? He also says, if top management was unaware of this, I'd be surprised because many line pilots knew about it.
Right. So therefore, we are dealing with a potential pilot-induced crash. Is that what we're looking at?
That's what you're looking at. And I think that's what the authorities were looking at when they appointed a Director General of Police in that committee who knows nothing about aviation. And there was also a talk of sabotage angle. So when you put two and two together, it means they were aware of what was happening.
According to Britain's The Times publication, Sabharwal, that's one of the pilots, the 56-year-old, he had more than 15,000 hours of flying experience, but just 3 flights remaining. That's important, just 3 flights remaining before he planned to become a full-time carer for his father. That's another way of saying he was about to retire, at their home in a gated community in Powai, a suburb of Mumbai. Now you can imagine that is a heck of a step down from piloting these massive planes to basically working as a nurse for his own ailing father. And he was only 56-year-old. That's quite young to retire, basically from life. The other man in the cockpit, this is again according to the Times, was Clive Kunder, 32, who was much nearer the start of his career as a commercial pilot with 3,400 hours of flight time. So you would also imagine that he could handle some of these things in a way possibly better because he was younger, the stresses. Kunda lived about 7 miles from his co-pilot with his parents and younger sister in a different Mumbai suburb. They each had a parent who had worked in aviation. Pushkaraj was a retired official from India's Directorate General of Civil Aviation, while Kunda's mother was an Air India flight attendant. Of the two pilots, I'm inclined to think the 56-year-old was perhaps more vulnerable to a mental health crisis, not only based on the fact that his career was due to end soon. I think just that on its own is quite a significant milestone for a lot of people, but also because of what others have apparently said about him having a health condition. Again, what was it? Was it depression or stress related? Well, at this point, we just don't know. We do know that statistics show most people, male or female, are at their unhappiest close to 50 years of age, which would theoretically exclude the younger pilot. Clearly, the 28-year-old German wings pilot had his own issues that fall outside of the typical statistical sample. Research indicates that men and women tend to reach their lowest point of happiness in their late 40s, with some studies suggesting an average low point around 47.2 years old, while women may experience a dip earlier in their late 30s. So statistically, it does seem to support this idea that it could be the older person in terms of these two pilots. According to NDTV, the AAIB report confirms that both pilots were medically certified and had passed their annual checks. But Captain Ranganathan urged a deeper investigation into the psychological and behavioral health of the crew, not just in the days before the crash, but over the preceding months. That does seem to make sense. In other words, he's asking for an in-depth psych evaluation, something we often see in true crime. We saw it in the Laurie Vallow case, as well as Letitia Stork. It's all about mental competency and mental health. They would need to look at the last few months to determine if a pilot was on medical leave and why. All of that is to be thoroughly investigated. I'm not an active pilot anymore, but if I'm hearing this feedback from pilots who are still flying, there's got to be a reason for it, he told NDTV. Pilot-induced crashes are rare, according to the same source, but not unprecedented. Captain Ranganathan cited other suspected incidents, including Egypt Air Flight 990 in 1999, the Silk Air Flight 185 in 1997, and China Eastern Airlines Flight 5735, just 3 years ago in 2022. In the case of Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370, most of us have heard about that. Many experts believe that pilot may have deliberately diverted the aircraft before it disappeared as well. So we really do want to make sure we know what sort of pilots are piloting these craft with so many people on board. It is interesting that of those additional incidents cited, all appear to be located in the East, the Middle East or the Far East. According to NDTV, many Indian airlines and even the Directorate General of Civil Aviation have failed to adopt mental health safeguards for pilots despite repeated warnings. He goes on to say it's not just the airline's fault, it's also the regulator's responsibility. One key issue is flight time limitations and rest periods. As far as I know, these pilots had just flown long haul and they were about to fly long haul again. Over the last 10 to 15 years, according to NDTV, pilots have been pushed to their limits, leaving them with very little family life. You have many families breaking up, and this kind of stress can lead to various reactions, Captain Ranganathan said. No airline in India maintains a psychiatric profile of its pilots during medical evaluations. Some of us have been warning about this, but it falls on deaf ears. People prioritize connectivity and schedules, treating pilots like machines rather than human beings. Neither airlines, the regulator, nor the judiciary in India fully understand what fatigue and stress can do, and now we're paying a price for that, he added. The mental health of pilots definitely deserves deeper scrutiny, wouldn't you agree? And I would think going forward, some new initiatives need to be put in place. But in the meantime, fellow crew members can also pay attention to each other and make sure their colleagues are okay. Interestingly, although men's happiness dips in their late 40s, it appears to lift again after this. But this apparently is less true of women, at least according to some studies. And so I think this whole mental health issue in terms of time and schedules is something that applies to the rest of us as well. And I do think happiness later in life and so on depends a lot on the individual, regardless of if you're a man or a woman. I think it depends on the individual, one's identity, and what one finds meaningful. In the 80s movie Aliens, a washed-up, depressed, and traumatized Flight Officer Ripley, by the way, understandably traumatized, understandably depressed, she'd had her whole crew wiped out, she comes out of hibernation with the incentive of having her status as a pilot restored.
For you, it would be the best thing in the world to get out there and face this thing. Get back on the horse.
Spare me, Burke. I've had my psych evaluation this month.
Yeah, I know. I've read it. You wake up every night, your sheets are soaking with
I
sweat.
said no, and I mean it.
That can work, an incentive. One wonders whether the 56-year-old pilot about to retire and having to care for his ailing father, whether he had an incentive or indeed had lost it. That is really something we all need to think about. Do we have an incentive? What is it? Is it a person, a place, an aspiration for ourselves? And if you lose one, it's up to you to choose another. I'm not going to take it further than that. Thank you for listening. Have a wonderful Sunday, and I'll see you guys next time.